Stefan, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for having me here.
Absolutely. I like to start the interview with the state of the state. It's where you essentially tell us the basics of what somebody needs to know about you before we begin.
Yeah. Well, I'm sitting in our studio in Berlin. I'm the founder of MSM Studios. That's a studio that I founded in the early 90s. Our headquarters is based in Munich. And we still have our studios in Munich, but we opened up another branch in Berlin 2 years ago.
Excellent. Yeah. I have been to your studio in Munich. You were out of town.
I know. I was probably in Berlin.
Yeah, you were probably in Berlin at the time. The look of the studio here on the Zoom call looks like the one in Munich. Is there a lot of similarities between the two spaces?
The Munich studio was, of course, a blueprint. And then of course, when you have the opportunity to build a studio from scratch, then you fix all the stuff you've been thinking over the years that might need to be changed and that might be improved. So yeah, it's similar. The acoustics is both studios. Acoustics is done by my good friend Jochen Veit. So there was no risk at all involved. The room in Berlin is a bit bigger, and we've managed to improve things that we thought in Munich that still could be improved, although the room is, as I hope you got that experience, very good as well.
Yeah, it was a beautiful room, beautiful sounding room. Let's go back to the beginning. Where did you grow up? Where were you raised?
Well, I'm born and raised close to Stuttgart, which is in the southwest of Germany. And I started my career pretty much in Munich. I've been freelancing there, and then quite quickly decided to build my own mastering room. So I started my career. The important part of my career was mainly being a mastering engineer, building my own studio in Munich, and expanding from there. And then did whatever took my interest.
What was the role of music for you growing up? Were you in school band? I don't know how it works in Germany, but was music a big influence as a kid?
Oh yeah, of course. I think I started making music as a kid. Don't know what age, and it always picked me, and it was a very important part of or is still, of course, part of my life. I was a trained flute player, and as a flute player, what do you do when you play in a band? You pick up a saxophone. So and then there have been jazz bands and school bands and God knows what. So that kind of was a very important part of my school days already. So I just remember me going to school. In Germany, it's typically you have the mornings and some afternoons, and I was going to the school was just the next town. So there were times when I had to do that trip 3 times a day just for some rehearsals and another thing and another band. And so that was my life, which was really good, but of course it's changed.
Where did your interest in audio production or your awareness of how records were made, when did that occur?
Well, that was actually in my later school days when I was curious and how do they do that, and what is a studio, and how do they record these records, and what's going on, and I hardly remember that, but there was one recording being done that was released on a vinyl disc where I was part of, and it was totally weird. There was a guy in a little Volkswagen bus coming to the backyard and making a recording in there. And so, well, but these are all these little things where you say, well, that's interesting. How do they do that? And so that's stuck with me for the rest of my life.
Did you ever have any ideas that you wanted to play music professionally, or was that just a hobby?
When I was close finishing high school, it was kind of make a decision. Should I go the music road, or should I go the more technical road to becoming an audio engineer? And but it was quite quickly a decision made. No, I don't want to go for the musician road. I want to go for more the technical part of it. And had this idea. Well, if I do that, then I can combine the both. Over time, I've realized, at least for me, it doesn't work. You can't sit in a studio all day and then keep on practicing an instrument. That's just not working for me. So that's the downside of it.
Did you go to school to study audio?
Yeah, I did. There was the time when the School of Audio Engineering facilities showed up in Europe. So I picked that one, and then I was pretty much, even during my studies there, I got a job at back then BMG Studios. They had a studio in Munich. So I was kind of an summer intern, or kind of helping the guys out during the summer season, and this summer lasted for a few years. So these are the kind of stories that I think are quite common in our industry anyway.
Were there people around you that you would consider mentors that were, keeping you on the right path or advising you?
Actually, not too many. Of course, you learn a lot when you work in a studio where some experienced colleagues are working, and you walk in and you see a guy that is just cutting tape while the tape is rolling. So you say, okay, this is a cool dude. And of course you can learn a lot. But I don't have any particular person that guided me my way. It was more or less me being sort of, I wouldn't say frustrated, but I was unhappy with the situation there, and I had an idea how things should go on. In my BMG days, I was kind of I needed to do lots of mastering jobs without having a mastering studio. So I was complaining a lot and say, hey guys, this is just not the right tools to do it, and we should build that. And they built a new studio then. I was involved in the planning and the whole progress of creating it. But management decided, no, we don't care. So that was for me kind of the idea. Why did I do it on my own? Because back then I had kind of I've made quite good contacts in the industry, and people were just coming to me at BMG. So I thought, well, if they come to me there, they might come to some other place if available.
So was your primary focus on mastering, or did you spend any time on the recording side of things?
Oh yeah. I had my time doing recordings, and I was a freelancer for a few years, and well, picking up whatever I could. But it all kind of came down to, oh, here's a mastering job, and can you do that? And at some point, you just say, well, it seems to be obvious that this becomes my role now.
Was there any part of you that craved the recording side, or did you find that you just felt more comfortable doing mastering versus recording or mixing?
Well, there is one part I enjoyed a lot, is that you don't have to stick weeks and months on the same thing. Which of course, it depending on what it is, you can have a lot of fun with that as well. But on the mastering side, it's kind of a comfortable situation. People have been dealing with the hard work already. You jump in at some later point, get a huge variety of music styles and all kinds of people you need to deal with, or you have to deal with, or you can deal with. So you learn many more people in a quite short period of time, and a lot of different music, and you have to just really be into whatever kind of music it is in so limited amount of time. That was really interesting for me to learn how to cope with that, and no matter if you personally like the music or not, to find that kind of neutral approach and say, well, but I think this kind of music needs this and this touch, and this needs to be done, or the way it is.
But it is the beauty of mastering in that you're not dealing with all of the struggles in the studio and all the hand wringing that goes down in mixing. You're at the end stage, and you're spending such a short time with the music.
But it's still quite intense. So you get kind of opposed to things. You just okay, boom, here you go, deal with it. So I love that approach, and I love really having the clients with me. I know some colleagues that say, well, I no, please get out the door. I need to be silent here. And I'm just the other way around. I need the artists, need the producers next to me and say, well, what do you think about this? What about that? How can we deal with that? So I enjoyed that a lot.
Talk to me about the decision process of deciding that you were going to make your own facility to work out of. And I think that was around, what, 1991? Is that accurate?
Yeah. Okay. Yes, that's right. Yeah, well, I think that's pretty much me. If I'm in most cases, I'm quite impatient. So I don't want to wait too much for things to happen. So if things don't move on as quickly as I wish, then I always have the tendency to say, well, then I do it on my own. I just do it because we have to do it now. And that was pretty much the thing. And back then there was another trigger for me. I was on an AES. I think it was my first American AES show in New York. And I met Mary Sauer from Sonic Solutions, and I got a demo actually together with Scott Hull in the same demo slot in I don't think it was a Hilton maybe, and I was so flashed with what you could do with the DAW and how things could help you. So that was another level for me. Say, hey, this is cool. This is where I want to go.
The first and only studio that was built in Munich. Is that a building that you bought eventually, or do you lease the building?
No, we leased the building. We had the huge opportunity. Actually, the first studio was at a different place. It was a one-room studio, but we've been expanding quite quickly, and so we needed more space. And the initial idea was we needed to have 2 identical mastering rooms. And so I've been searching for a new place for almost a year. And then we had the huge luck actually to find that building that needed to be renovated. And the landlord said, I need somebody who wants to go there long term. And I said, yeah, that's me. And lucky enough, it was back then by far too big. But this allowed us to grow within that building, and it has, of course, you can imagine over the time it changes a lot, but the basic structure was always there, and we had a big influence on how the renovation work was done, which part we can do. So all the isolation parts for the acoustics was done by ourselves, and it's still the same landlord. So that's a really cool. I just over time I realized how lucky we are. Back then you just have a new building and you build it in a studio and don't think about it. But over time you realize, oh, this is really very valuable place.
Having been there, it's very built out. There's a lot going on and a lot of time and effort that's been put into that space. Talk to me about the early days of the business in that building, and who were your clients and what kind of work were you doing?
We expanded from 1 mastering room to 2 mastering rooms. Equipment was identical, and I was mainly running it with my early colleague Christoph Stickel, who joined the company already in 1991, and he moved to Vienna a few years ago, but he's a long-term friend of mine as well, and so the two of us mainly ran the place. Really, in terms of mastering, we've been really early days in Germany, so it was not very common to do that. Lots of mastering back then was kind of a transfer process, and I said, no, we can do more to that than just copying a file to a pneumatic tape, and being the first having a DAW to do the editing and restoration work and so on. That was kind of really, really early days. I think our software version of the Sonic Solutions was 0.9 or so. And we've been working across the industry, all genres, and well, back then we had a few more major labels around, and a few of them based in Munich. So yeah, that was quite an interesting time. Everything has changed in the meantime, of course.
The term surround sound sounds so antiquated at this point, but I'll say the term surround sound just so everybody knows what we're talking about. Like, when did that start to enter the picture for you?
Yeah, but actually, I call it multi-channel in the meantime, but to be a bit more. But yeah, actually, that was another thing of mine. I was involved in a live concert of quite a big German artist, there was a broadcast, a TV recording, and it happened to become the first Dolby surround show all these public broadcasters. So that was their first, and we've been lucky that this concert was kind of the first to go there. So and that was in 1994.
Wow.
So you can imagine talking about more than 2 speakers and some equipment you need to borrow from Dolby in the UK. There was no local office there, and you had to open up these boxes and configure some dip switches to make it work. And what I still remember, of course, we all had no clue how to deal with it. So I called up Dolby and said, "Hey guys, where do I put my speakers?" And today it will sound funny, but they told me, "Look, we are not the police. Just enjoy and have fun." Which didn't help me too much, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then we put up our speakers and set up the system and mixed this show and I was so convinced that this is such an extra value to especially a live concert, that and that was exactly the same time when I was planning the studios that you've been visiting and they've been opened up in 1995. So the 2 rooms were already equipped for 5.1. But of course, we didn't execute that. I had the idea, well, in 1994, well, next year, this is probably what we're going to do all the time. It took a few more years to come. Yeah. But since then, multi-channel audio is always been kind of something for me to explore and how can we make use of it and how can we improve what we can do. And of course, the industry helped with new technology and stuff. So it now these days, well, it all turned out good. But you can imagine in 1995 having a 5.1 system, people just stare at you like 10 years ago when you put speakers on the ceiling. So it's all repeating itself all the time.
Let's come back to the immersive, multi-channel technology in a bit, because I want to make a pit stop and ask you a little bit about some business things. It's one thing to become an audio professional and learn the technical side and, the professional, the consumer side and the delivery and all that comes with that. But the business side of it can sometimes be a challenge. Did you have any business experience before this? What was the process of making business and audio work together?
Well, I can't tell you. I'm still struggling with that. I think after so many years, I'm allowed to say our business is different than any other business. And I didn't do any business schools or stuff like that. It's a kind of a self-made guy just trying to learn the rules of making business. And of course, I made tons of mistakes, and I still do, I guess. Yeah, but I was always kind of interested in, okay, how can we run that? What do we need to survive? What do we need to move on? I might be a bad example of when is a good time to start new things, because I'm always too early. Oh, the moment you started, you regret it and realize, oh, why did I do the same mistake again? Over time, then you realize it's a big advantage if you're first, because then you can make all the mistakes at a time when nobody cares. So you have enough time to learn it, to train yourself, to figure out, oh, this works better than other stuff, and let's do it this way or the other way around. So it's hard to be first, but over time you're gonna get rewarded as well. So it's I'm if I would be a wise businessman, I probably would be slower in jumping on your business, but I can't help. I just need to do it.
Yeah. And it's challenging too in mastering because, for years, the cost of pieces of gear for mastering they always seemed like they were like a next level up from equipment equipment used in recording was expensive, but it always seemed like mastering boxes of, whether they be EQs or limiters or whatever, it was always like 5, 10, 15, 20 grand, for a piece of equipment. And so, and And the cost of computers in the 90s, of course, was, a little bit insane. So
Yeah, it was
making those
insane.
decisions about, buying that kind of stuff, I'm sure that was challenging.
Yeah, I'm not the kind of guy who needs to buy every little single piece of equipment you think is cool. So I always had a kind of a minimalistic approach, and my focus was always on building a good room, spending by far too much money on room acoustics, but it pays off actually. And even in our first studio, we teamed up with the acoustic company that was founded by Jochen Veit, and we decided our first studio was mainly, or was used as well as the demo room for their being studio builders and studio acousticians. So that was kind of a good combination. And we decided to develop our own speakers. And since then, I'm always driven into, okay, let's get the maximum out of my room. And the better my room is, the easier for me is to do my job. If you have clients in and they look at your rack and say, "Well, that's not much," and you say, "Well, but it's not about how many of them you use. It's just how you use them, and how your room tells you what to use in which case, and so on." So I think that's still true today. We spend more money on acoustics and speakers and stuff than buying every little piece of gear that's out there.
I love that approach, because the gear is going to change over time, but acoustics are acoustics, and it's something that once you invest in and it's there, it's a solid investment that will translate literally to everything.
Absolutely. Our mastering room, our studio A, you may remember this red room in the upper floor.
Mm-hmm.
That room has, the only changes to that room, the basic changes, has been, we replaced the speakers at one time. So we replaced the custom built speaker by another custom made speaker. And at the beginning of COVID, we changed the color of the wall. And that was pretty much it. And this room is still, I think, one of the best rooms you can get. So it pays off if you're patient enough and you survive 30 years to make use of that room.
I think that's great advice, to go all in on a room and be a little more minimalistic on not overspending on the gear. Talk to me about Pure Audio Blu-ray. You developed that, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Well, actually, that's again me being unhappy with the situation it is and trying to find a solution for that. So with I need to go back a little bit. So 1994, I was convinced surround sound will be it. Then I learned that there will be a new format called DVD around in end of 90s, and we immediately jumped on that. That's why we needed to implement video services and authoring, graphic design, and all that kind of stuff within MSM to be able to serve the clients and to be able to deal with a new format like DVD. And my driving force for that was to be able to deliver surround sound finally. Well, we all know the history of DVDs, and then we had the DVD audio and Super Audio CD disaster. And then the Blu-ray came along, and of course we immediately jumped. We've been the first to adapt to Blu-ray discs with our service and everything. And then I was really curious, would the industry pick up on the same model, like there was a DVD video and there is a DVD audio later? So I was curious, well, will it repeat itself, and will there be another Blu-ray audio at some point? And by then I made friends with people at the Blu-ray Disc Association. I knew them for many years, and I always kept asking the same question. Well, what about audio? There is a fantastic new format out there, but how can we as music guys make use of it? And at some point, one of these representatives just told me, "Look, now your friend is talking to you. I'm putting off my BDA hat, and I'm just telling you they don't give a shit. They don't care about the music industry. Music industry perspective of Hollywood is just dead. We don't care. So I sit there with the whole pile of Blu-ray authoring capabilities, having clients in the music industry, and say, well, but that can't be all, because now finally we would have a format that could combine the advantages of a DVD audio and a Super Audio CD. But the main thing that's missing is an option to use the disc as it was a CD. So I sat down with my programmer and say, hey, I have an idea. Why don't we program a disc in a way that it behaves? So we bring back functionality we all know from the CD, but we need to overcome the problem of having multiple audio formats, because back then you could do this. We still can, but the focus was on stereo in up to 192.24. And surround sound 5.1 in 96.24. So I said, well, this is all we need, but we need to get access to it. And so I talked to him and said, hey, this is my idea. Do you think we can do that? And he said, yeah, sure. But you should never ask a programmer how long it takes. So he told me it will probably take 2 weeks. It took us a year. And it was good to not know in advance what's going on. But in the end, it turned out to become a really solid format where you can just have a physical disc with high resolution, high quality stereo and multi-channel on the same disc. And actually, that was for us the door opener to implement other formats like Aural 3D and Dolby Atmos in our studios, because we had a format where we could deliver, and that was the big difference for us. So yeah, that was the invention of pure audio Blu-ray. Became an AES standard and so on. So
many people would hear the message about how nobody gives a shit and give up and just say, all right, well, let's sell off all this authoring gear and move on to the next thing. But it's very interesting, and it's very telling about you, about where your head is at, that you decided to press on and just keep asking, like, there has to be more. What can we do?
That again, the same thing. Like, why did you build your own studio? That's I think that's always the same thing. If things don't move, then I said, well, then I have to move.
I love that. That's very inspiring to hear. But let me ask you this: just playing devil's advocate, do you feel that there is still a demand enough for physical media, or is it specifically in a niche that would apply only to what many people would refer to as audiophiles?
There is a niche. I don't mind being in a niche. I've been there before. And yes, there is still a demand for physical. So we still, and just to give you an example, of course, our Blu-ray authoring services are not just for pure audio Blu-ray. So we do any kind of Blu-ray stuff, mainly music. So there's hardly any movie come along, but it's all about music. But I think in the last year we made maybe 2-3 live concerts on a Blu-ray, but maybe, don't know, 30 discs on a pure audio disc. So there is still a market for it. Of course, if you look at the figures, these are in the lower thousands. Most start with a volume of 1,000 discs, but still these days selling 1,000 discs is an achievement. 30 years ago, people would have laughed at you, but you can do that, and it's a high-priced product, so you still can make some money with it. But having said that, I've been working for the last couple of years to find a digital version of the Blu-ray and to be able to stream Blu-ray quality to the homes, which will be the next niche we're going to open up.
That's right. And I want to talk about that. But before we do, I just want to point out that when we talk about niches, niche does not have to be a derogatory or offensive word, because we don't always necessarily have to scale things to a mass audience. I think that there's still value in serving small groups of people with certain products or services that benefit them and that you can create a business out of. So when I say niche, I mean it with respect there. And I think that while there's not that many, like you say, in the low thousands, there's still people who are buying and using that format. And one question for me that I'm curious about, a pure audio Blu-ray can be played back on any Blu-ray player. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, that was the main focus, and the hardest work to do is that this is within the Blu-ray spec 100%. And so this disc will play in any player that can read a Blu-ray disc. That was the number one rule for the concept. I was hoping actually that the industry would pick it up a bit more seriously, but back then the music industry was mainly focused on MP3s. So yeah, but that was a counter development to that, and so hey, there is a high quality alternative if you want to make use of that. And it's much easier than dealing with back then DVD audio or super audio CDs, which is, I think, even the more niche, because Blu-ray players were around for quite popular, not for the music, but they've been in the household anyway. And that was the idea behind that.
You are on the cusp of a new idea here that you're, I think, as of the release, this will come out, what's today? Today's July 18th as we record this. This episode comes out on Monday, but the following Friday, tell us about what's coming next.
Yeah, what we start, and I've been teaming up with an old friend of mine, John Reichbach in San Francisco. We built a streaming platform for high-resolution multi-channel audio, or immersive audio. And we, well, again, this is again another, at least the start will be the niche, of course. So we take the quality we get on a Blu-ray disc and turn that into streaming. And the platform is mainly or is exclusively about streaming albums. So we don't have any facility to here's the next single and this and this and this. So we really focus on, this is a collection of albums for music lovers that want to hear immersive audio, that want to hear it in a quality that we know from the Blu-ray disc, and we want to kind of differentiate from what's going on streaming today. But we get the best quality we could get, and stream that to the homes. So that's the main goal for it.
So this is meant to go head to head against the presentation of Atmos on Amazon or Apple or Tidal.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Those formats, if I'm correct, on Amazon, or sorry, on Apple, it's DD plus Jock that they stream, and that's a lossy format. And Tidal and Amazon is it AC4? What's the?
Well, it depends. If you're on headphones, it's AC4. If it's speaker based, and this is another big focus for us, they stream a DD plus Jock as well.
Your format is going to be a high resolution version.
Yes. So we had one other big rule. Again, that's just me being the old man growing up with CDs. I said I don't want to accept any. We need to have seamless playback. I really can't tell how much I hate when you listen to an album and you get these little glitches between the tracks, and I just said no, I don't want to go that road. So one big thing is we needed to go high res, we needed to go seamless, and the only solution today, this may change over time, but today the only way to achieve that is to use the Auro 3D codec that we already use on lots of Blu-rays already. And that gives us the experience we want to deliver to the homes. As well, we're digging into just straight multi-channel PCM as well. So we do some tests right now, just streaming 704, which we can do, but the seamless part is not fixed yet. And by the way, this is the same quality we're gonna stream to the phones as well. So you get lossless, high-res immersive on your headphones as well.
Is Auro 3D the container in which, say, a Dolby ADM file can write inside? Is that?
That's a very good, very important question. Yes, so our input format is an ADM.
Okay.
So we take the same ADM like all the other streaming platforms. If it's a 96K ADM, fine. And then we can create a 96, 24 oral 3D stream out of that.
What if you're sent a 24, 48K ADM? Does that still work as well?
Yeah. So we take the ADM as we get it, preferably as 96K ADM, but any ADM is good. And the 48K ADM, of course, ends up as a 48K oral file.
Mm-hmm.
And the 96 one will be streamed as 96, which is quite unique, or is unique. Because so far on the other platforms, you always have to sample down, but we don't need to do that.
For the audience that isn't familiar with it, and I'm barely familiar with it myself, because I've only been involved in Atmos within the last 5 years, but can you explain what Auro 3D is and how it pertains to Dolby Atmos?
Yeah, well, Auro 3D is a channel-based format. And back to our history, we've been the first to build or to have a Blu-ray disc out there in an Auro 3D format that goes back to 2012. So that's already quite a while. And the way Auro works is they encode the high channels to the lower channels, and then the container is out of a 714 would become then a 7.1. But still straight PCM, and this will be then decoded in the receiver at home back to the 714. So it's much more straightforward, and that's why I don't call it lossless, because there's a little encoding process in place, but it's you lose a few bits with that, but I think we're allowed to call it high res. Then, and it's a totally different thing compared to the 700 kilobits a second you get on DD plus Chalk.
Yeah.
And another argument to use a format like that was we needed to access most of the AV receivers at home. So lots of them do have an Auro 3D decoder built in. Most people wouldn't recognize or wouldn't care, because so far there was hardly any content out there. But if you look at the brands like Denon, Marantz, Yamaha, whatever, most of the devices do have an Auro decoder built in. Because I don't believe in that people would buy new gear just because we come up with a new idea of a new audio format. And a huge audience of ours will be people who do have a proper speaker-based system. And so you always have to face one or the other way of an AV receiver. And what we had to learn the hard way, I was expecting, well, we talked to the speaker manufacturers, and I heard, here's a stream, just take it and put it out on your speakers. And I had to learn that all the decoders, like the Atmos decoders, the Auro decoders, DTS decoders, built in the AV receivers, they are only wired to the HDMI input. So if there's a streaming module in your receiver, it only can take stereo. So that's, the industry never thought about an option like that. So we had to come up with another approach. So we needed to have an endpoint just before the receiver. So we built an Android TV app that's now running on a set-top box like an NVIDIA Shield. And then this set-top box becomes an endpoint to receive the streams and outputs HDMI. So for the receiver, it's just old school. Oh, here's HDMI encoded multi-channel audio. I know what to do, and go for it. So this gives us the maximum compatibility to the existing devices at home.
You're talking about a separate Android device that spits out HDMI, takes in the stream, spits out HDMI for
Yes.
an AVR receiver. I know, audience, I'm getting into a little bit of, immersive technology weeds, but that's okay. I want to understand this too, selfishly.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's that aspect of it.
And so because you need a way to feed your receiver, and so far the only way is to have a little external box that can do it. The next level, and we already start working with manufacturers, that some manufacturers built in a protocol we've developed, so you can now finally stream directly from our service to this device which of course is then the most convenient thing. So you pick up your phone, open up the app, choose your album, and say, play this on my receiver, and boom, it will play.
Now, if we're listening in headphones on our, like, let's say, okay, I've got an iPhone, and let's say I plug in a pair of headphones. Let's say I take these little Audio-Technica headphones and I plug them in. What's the experience there?
You will have a headphone experience, but you get the same audio quality. So we have two options. One is we stream the same 714 file in 9624 to your phone. It will be auto-decoded in the app, and it will binauralize in the app.
Okay.
But you get the full bandwidth on that. The other option is to save a bit of bandwidth. We can, as well, as we have total control of our platform, we can have in parallel a binaural stream. So it's already binauralized stereo, but non-compressed audio as well. So it will be just a flag encoded PCM file that already has the binauralization built in. And this gives us the opportunity that people like both who want to deliver a totally separate headphone mix, we're happy to take that. So we don't want to force people to go for the strict rules they have to do with the rest of the industry. So we're built for music lovers, and we will have more options than others. So if you're going to decide, my next headphone mix will be totally different to my speaker-based mix, then you just deliver two mixes, and we're happy to take that. The same way we are addicted to originals. So if you dig out in your archive and find a quad tape, we can stream quad. Why not? We don't force people to redo stuff for a new format without any need. If you, for artistical reasons, decide, okay, I want to do a remix, well, that's all fine. But just to fulfill another format, I don't see any reason why would you touch such a thing like a quad tape that was done on purpose by the artists, by the producers, and in some cases you can't even ask them anymore if they would be okay if you would do things differently. So we are much more flexible as we have totally control of everything. So we can pretty much deal with any kind of format and get as close as possible to the source.
I'm to understand the economic model for the artist is a different one than, say, the bastard of all of them, Spotify, for example.
Yeah. No, as we decided to make everything differently than anybody else, we said, well, then let's try to fix that part of the streaming as well. So we follow a so-called user-centric model. So we look at each individual user and split the payment of this particular user amongst the music that user has been listening to. So if you listen to 2 albums a month, then your money is split between the 2 albums. And we don't count clicks, we count time. Because I think it's nothing worse in our industry than creating music that's focusing on, well, when do I get a click? That's just not about music. That's just economics. And splitting pieces in smaller chunks to get more clicks is kind of the most weirdest way I could ever think of thinking of music. So we decided we just count the time you listen to an artist, to an album, and this time will be part of the math how your money is going to be split, and we can make sure that the money you spend is just split amongst the artists you've been listening to, and not put everything in one big basket. Another big advantage is that this model is totally resistant against fraud, because, well, you can create more accounts and you can play your music all day long, but then it's just your money split for the music you play. So you cannot cheat that system.
Yeah, that was actually going to be one of my next questions was, what are you going to do with people with, phones and bots just streaming,
Yeah, but then they pay for listening or pay for being played, but the money is then sent to what's being played. So there's always you can create just more clicks because you don't get more money out of that.
I think my next question about that service would be access. So what is the average, I work with a bunch of independent artists and I mix all their stuff in stereo and Atmos simultaneously. Can the average independent artist access this platform?
Of course. So we talk to anybody. I think the toughest part will be talking to the major labels, which we already started, but you can imagine being a small service in a niche needs the right arguments to convince people to do that. But I think especially for independent artists and for music that's not written for the 2-minute 30 click rate, whatever thing is done, with a more fair payout model, you're gonna benefit from your fans and your audiences. So if your fans listen to your music on that platform, most of their money just goes in your pocket and is not distributed amongst others. So we're happy to take. Well, there's one simple rule. It needs to be a dedicated Atmos mix. So we won't take up mixes and stuff like that. We need to be really careful managing expectations with our users. And we sell the thing as a high quality, a high profile album collection. And so we have to make sure that we don't damage that by having, how do you say that correctly, cheap. You know what I mean? So kind of
right.
Yeah, stuff that's not made for it, put it that way.
Right. So this is not a platform for stereo. No, this is a platform for all variations of immersive platform.
Exactly. And it's a multi-channel platform, not saying that at some point we do have discussions whether we should add a stereo tier to that. But right now we're quite reluctant because I think there's so many. If you want to have high resolution stereo, you already have at least one subscription that can handle that.
And I think the key for a lot of people who are still a little bit on the fence about Atmos and immersive technologies in general, the fact that you can deliver a proper lossless headphone experience is really key. And I mean, sonically, that's going to sound very different from Apple or Amazon or Tidal, actually, for that matter.
Yeah, I hope that this will overcome a big problem that people who are concerned about high quality audio and only listen on headphones. It's very clear that they don't accept what they've been presented in the immersive world. But it's not the fault of immersive in general, but it's a fault of the codecs involved. That's my view.
What's the name of the service?
It's called Pure Audio Streaming.
The next iteration from Pure Audio Blu-ray, and that's great.
Exactly. Yeah,
I'm really looking forward to it.
Thank you.
I've got some titles that I'm gonna try to send your way that I'm excited about and that I think this platform would be great for. Yeah, so much to look forward to in that for those of us Atmos nerds who are into it. You're in a spot now where you've got the Munich and the Berlin studios, and those are still doing mastering, stereo mastering, immersive mastering, but you're
mixing
and mixing too. Okay.
Yeah. So maybe I should mention that even for myself, with the introduction of Dolby Atmos, I'm more involved into mixing than any time before in my life. So that's another big step for me personally as well.
So for the audience, I'll put a link in the show notes to not only MSM, to the studio. What does MSM stand for?
That's a good question. It stands for Mastering Studio Munich. That was how we started. We couldn't find like it with a band. We don't know how to call it, and at some point say it's a mastering studio. It's based in Munich, so call it Mastering Studio Munich. And everybody was calling it MSM. And at some point, you needed to kind of see the legal state of the company change. So it needed to become a GmbH. And they say, well, it's going to be MSM Studios, because back then it was not just about mastering. We expanded for DVDs and Blu-rays and mixing, and so So we became a more versatile place to deal with pretty much anything, but having a huge recording room. But everything else is just handled in-house.
Well, I'll put a link in the show notes for the audience to check out MSM online. And I don't know whether or not we'll have it available as of Monday, but it's at least by Friday, we can always update the show notes to include pure audio streaming as well.
Well, there's a website already up there called pureaudiostreaming.com. So you're happy if you put that down there. It's good.
Yeah, we'll do that so everybody can check that out. I appreciate the time that you've given me here and the knowledge that you've shared with us. And yeah, I look forward to running into you in person at some point in the future. Some trade show. Yeah. I'm sure we'll sit and chat.
Well, but we're gonna manage that. Yeah.
Yeah. Or I'll come back out to Germany.
Please come.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's fantastic. Thank you, Stefan, and take care. And thanks again.
Thank you, man.